Gachagua amekosea nini Kenya? Personally, the reasons why Gachagua is being vilified might be personal reasons. I cannot be part of a team that is going to execute an impeachment over personal issues. I cannot. And that's why when they gave me a chance to vote, I refused to vote. And true, even if I voted 44 votes to 45, the difference was going to be zero. There was no difference. So I stood firm. Out of the 9 MPs of Bungoma, I was the one who said, please, you have given me a chance to vote, but I'm not voting. I did not vote because I didn't want to be part of the vilification or impeachment. And I'm asking the sobriety of Senate. Let the Senate be informed by reason. Because what we do in Parliament, both of our parliaments can be challenged by the courts. The courts are waiting now to interpret every count. Legal and everything. Me, I don't sympathize with anybody, but I don't have a reason why I should fight anyone. In any case, the churches have spoken. Ole Sapit of the SCK, he spoke. He spoke of forgiveness. He spoke of how we can lead this country through forgiveness. Even in your home, nyinyi mko hapa na wazazi, baba na mama kwa nyumba. Kama ingekuwa kila kosa mama anaenda, hatungekuwa na familia in Kenya. Ni kusameana, wanasameana. Every day mistakes, we run through the mistakes. I'm only asking for us. It's not yet late. It's not yet late. It's not yet late. We can still reason in this country.
Nikisema ya kwamba mimi nimetoka mlima, niwaambie ukweli, all the interventions zimejaribiwa kufanyika ya kuchange His Excellency the Deputy President, they are affecting the presidency of Dr. William Ruto. And I wish we can tell our people, just stop wherever you are. Wacha tushikane, tuone vile tutaweka rais na deputy wafanye kazi, tuweze kuruka 2027. Bwana DL, mimi nilianzana na president nikiwa 2008. I was a councillor and chairman of the council. We have walked the journey with the president at the backyard. But the people about who will suffer a lot under the presidency ni sisi. Because we are talking the truth. Tunamwambia ukijaribu hiyo mambo ya kina Kidiki kubadilisha, ukijaribu hiyo mambo ya Ndindi, ukijaribu hiyo mambo ya whoever kubadilisha, wananchi wamekataa. That's the truth. Lakini ukisema hiyo ukweli, unarushwa nje. We will suffer. Na DL imefika hata kwetu. You are not going through the rights process vile ulipigania hii serikali. Tukiomba kina Sudi, saidieni tafadhali. We don't need to fight.
Nitapeleka mswada bunge ya kubadilisha sheria ya impeachment. Lazima tubadilishe sheria ya impeachment. Ikuwe wakati mtu anafaa kuwa impeached, inakuwa kama referendum. Wananchi waongee, sisi viongozi hapa. We have changed the impeachment process of even governance. Tumeona mateso Kawira Mwangaza amepitia mengi. Na ile kitu mmefanya nini kukosana na wadosi kidogo. We cannot be making sure wananchi wapate nafasi ya kazi kwa sababu wewe na viongozi fulani mlikosana. Wacha watu wafanye kazi yao, wananchi wapate mali.
Welcome to the bold analysis. The government, in a desperate attempt to nail the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, is pulling a strange witness to testify against Rigathi in the Senate. And according to exclusive reports coming, is that the witness who may not be able to appear in court in person has been allowed even to record a statement or record a video that can be played in the National Assembly so that they can disown what the Deputy President spoke about earlier in his press statement. I told you, and if you've been consistently following my analysis on regarding impeachment, that impeachment is twofold. And the first bit of what started, when the movers of the motion first started by going for personal attacks on the deputy president. And remember the story of how the DP banged the table of his boss, the former President Ruto. There was another story of how Rigathi Gachagua assaulted Dennis Itumbi. And there was so much on stories bordering the conduct of the president. They spoke about also those insubordinations. But the threshold of those ones, and if you listen to, I listened to P.L. Lumumba speaking the Citizen, and he said that the MPs were only talking of I was disrespected. Now, I was disrespected does not form a threshold of impeaching the deputy president if you follow what the 2010 Constitution said to the latter. And so they decided to introduce criminal charges. The criminal charges is where 22 companies were named. And Mwengi Mutuse only asked a question to Kenyans that why should a deputy president be operating 22 companies? In fact, there is no law that says that you can't have more than one companies. I know, even in the county government, you know, the irony of National Assembly here is, when legislators are asking Rigathi why he has 22 companies, how many companies does the president have? How many companies does Kimani Ichung'wah have? The county governments are running more than 300 bank accounts, different bank accounts, and legislators cannot really question them. And then Rigathi responded and said that some of those companies, I registered them before I even became the deputy president. And Mwengi Mutuse said that we don't want to hear about that. So his presentation was very clear. When Mwengi Mutuse spoke for 1 hour on Tuesday in Parliament to move the motion of impeachment, he actually failed to table evidence of corruption and or conflict of interest linked to the 22 companies that they're accusing deputy president of running. Now, exclusively, what is now coming is going to shock you. The movers of the motion are putting a desperate attempt to infiltrate the inner family of late Nderitu Gachagua so that the family can swear affidavit against the deputy president Rigathi Gachagua to portray him as someone who was lying or someone who was just abused power to disinherit the widow. And this is a very emotive scheme that is being hatched by people behind the scheme. And I said, in fact, just as Rigathi said, even if you want to impeach, I think if you have weak grounds, you have weak grounds. It doesn't matter how you will twist and spin these facts around. You cannot twist and spin the whole day. If you don't have a ground, you don't have a ground. There is no two way about it. So just to give you a good footing, I want us to listen to the presentation that the deputy president made. This presentation on Nderitu Gachagua, on the properties that belonged to Nderitu Gachagua.
And are alleged to be proceeds of corruption. How unfair, how cruel can you be to a dead man? A man who worked so hard, a man who gave his life for his family, to buy plots, to construct property, and leave them in his death for his children and his brothers and sisters. And then you go to the floor of the House and allege that those properties are production of corruption. My dear brother, rest in peace and forgive me for having joined politics. Because were it not for politics, you will not suffer this shame. Your children are crestfallen as they see their properties being splashed in newspapers as proceeds of crime. The Olive Garden Hotel that is alleged to have been bought by Rigathi Gachagua belongs to the estate of the late James Nderitu Gachagua. And in his will, he directed that we sell all his properties and divide the proceeds among his brothers, sisters, wives, and children. We, as the executors of his estate, and I want to pay tribute to lawyer Njoroge Regero and Mwai Madenge for their commitment and sacrifice to the Gachagua family. Many executors who have been given properties to run by deceased people end up misusing them and depriving the beneficiaries. These two great men and myself, because my brother knew I'm an honest man and a fair person, and he knew his family would never suffer in my hands. We were able to sell Olive Garden Hotel at 412 million and distributed the proceeds to the beneficiaries as directed in his will. We registered his will in the High Court of Kenya and were given the probate. And my late brother, in his wisdom, left Rigathi Gachagua 5% of his wealth. I was therefore able to get 20 million shillings from this sale. That is money that is in my account, that again I'm told they are proceeds of crime. He left my mother 5% of his wealth, another 20 million shillings. And since my mother is dead, my late brother, because he trusted me, had put in his will that I hold my mother's shares in trust. So that is another 20 million shillings in my account. Again, my late brother left me another 4% hold in trust of the children who is deceased, the late Dr. Friend Wachira Gachagua, whose children are in South Africa. And another 16 million shillings was put in my account. My late brother gave 2% to my wife, Pastor Dorcas, because of her kindness of looking after him when he was ill. All this money that has come to me from a dead brother, I'm being told are proceeds of crime. Queen's Gate Service Apartments, another property belonging to the late Gachagua, is another property that I'm told I've bought as when I'm deputy president. That is why I have 5.2 billion worth of money. And this property, again, we sold the Cooperative Bank of Kenya, the staff retirement benefits for nearly 600 million. And this money we utilized to pay his debts. And today, as the late Gachagua rests in heaven, he has no debt. Again, I want to thank my fellow executors, Njoroge Regero and Mwai Madenge, for what you have done for my brother. Vipingo Beach Resort in Kilifi was Gachagua's holiday home, a beautiful palatial resort on 3.5 acres on the beach. I remember with nostalgia that he used to host us there every Christmas to enjoy ourselves. This property belongs to the estate of the deceased because ourselves have a family. We want to retain it for sentimental value. So,
and this really disarmed the movers of the motion. So to some extent, I know that Mwangi Mutuse said that what is happening here is that Rigathi Gachagua bought those properties from the brother. That is what Mwangi Mutuse said. So that statement from the deputy president really disarmed the movers of the motion, because what the movers of the motion envisioned, what was their plan, is to ensure that they used this to hit Rigathi in the ground. And I can tell you that the fact that Rigathi was able to defend this matter on the fact that I managed, as I'm the person who was managing the properties of my brother, of the late brother, it's something that found, actually government was caught off guard. And probably they just didn't do. Now, if you want to know that this matter of linking Nderitu Gachagua's family is something in the offing, you may want to listen to Silvanus Osoro. And
Mr. Speaker, I want to remind the honorable members that Clinton was almost impeached, or the impeachment attempt against Clinton in 1998 was out of the Monica Lewinsky.
Read your history properly. He was actually impeached.
Exactly. Monica Lewinsky matter. Of course, it was overturned later by the courts and other issues, but I'm saying it was out of that scandal, the very small scandal of the sexual scandal in White House. Honorable Speaker, I want first to start by proposing this question, Honorable Speaker, to honorable members. How would you feel that when you eventually transit to the next world, you are dead, that your brother or the person that you choose to entrust to take care of your wife and your children's property decides to start using those property for his own personal use? As members, how would you feel that? That is the question that honorable members should be making, should be answering themselves before they vote today, later today, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the late Governor Nderitu Gachagua passed on 24th of February 2017. Between 2017, Honorable Speaker, to 2024, it is indeed true that the late governor then, amongst Mwai, Madenge and Njoroge, he entrusted Mr. Rigathi, the deputy president, as the executor of his will. But, Honorable Speaker, between 2017 and 2024, the property that, and this is, Honorable Speaker, is in the document that Mwangi Mutuse has shared, Honorable Mwangi Mutuse has shared with us and tabled in this house, that between 2017 and 2024, he's been able to alter or tamper with those companies, make himself directors in some of those companies, transfer some of those properties to himself, disinherit some of the beneficiaries, the kids of the late, and put them to himself. And then one particular case, Honorable Speaker, is the Olive Garden Realtors, Honorable Speaker, that was actually altered on 2nd of March 2022, using the position of power to his own advantage, Honorable Speaker. How can you explain that? He will then tell you, Honorable Speaker, that I bought its willing buyer, willing seller. Really? Does it mean that all your money that you've acquired, which is also questionable, the only property that you could identify is the property that is under the care or is supposed to help the family and the widows of your late brother? How wicked can we be? Then you come in full glare of camera and tell the members of the public that please let my brother rest in peace. I decided to hold this property in trust for them, when the brother, the kids, the widows, and the daughters and sons of the late are languishing in poverty and complaining and crying. It is total shame. You cannot use your position for that. Honorable Speaker, these are practical examples, and I'm telling honorable members to acquit themselves and go through ground 7, Honorable Speaker. It is actually on page 16 to 30. This This is nothing but gross violation of the law, Honorable Speaker, taking advantage of their own power, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, and you know, even to prove that, you will realize that those companies, by the time the companies were being, some of them were being registered, the new ones, and the time the transfer of these properties were taking place, Honorable Speaker, the whole thing is actually contemporaneous. You need not to be a rocket scientist to know that clearly this is fraud and this is this was taking advantage of the late. I want to remind the Honorable Deputy President of the good book in the book of Proverbs chapter 15 verse 25, that the Lord will tear, that's what the Bible says, that the Lord will tear down the house of the proud, but he will establish the boundary of the widow. That is why we are here today. If there is no other reason that has brought us here, Honorable Speaker, it is to protect the family that is being disinherited of their property under coercion, blackmail, and threats. If there is no other reason, Honorable Speaker. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, even it's actually biblical again. In the good book, Honorable Speaker, of the book of Exodus 22:22, that do not take advantage of the widow. Do not take advantage of the fatherless. If you do, and they cry to me, I will certainly hear their cry. And my anger will be aroused, and I will kill you with the sword. Today, we are using the sword today here to protect, and it is biblical, it is religious. Today, we are using the sword to impeach you, just to protect the children that are suffering, that you threatened, that you blackmailed, that you told that if you dare speak or utter a word, I am the Deputy President of Kenya, elected by 7.2 million people. I will finish you. Finish who? We will finish you today in this floor of the House. Honorable Speaker, I mean, there is nothing more for me, Honorable Speaker, on this matter. There is nothing more than cabinalism. I mean, really, like you are left under the care of the properties of your brother. Then you take them to your advantage. Your immediate brother. Then on TV you tell us that, you know, in the will, my brother gave me, and then he gave my wife, then he gave my sons. What about his children? What about his widows? What about his sons? What about, how proudly can you say that you are only enjoying the property of your brother? For that reason alone, Honorable Speaker, we say Gachagua must go. If there is no other reason, today Gachagua must go. Honorable Speaker, I relate this case with the case of, I relate this matter, Honorable Speaker, with the Spelunchian explorers case, Honorable Speaker, where the members...
Yes, Kipchumba. Timothy Kipchumba.
Honorable Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 91 on the issue of statement of facts. Honorable Speaker, is it in order for the Honorable Soro to claim that the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua disinherited the wife of the late brother? Honorable Speaker, can he table the facts before this House that he disinherited?
Honorable Kipchumba. Order, Osoro. Honorable Kipchumba. Those are the facts that the move of the motion placed on the table. It appears you probably were not in the House then. Finish up, Osoro.
Honorable Speaker, I'll refer the Honorable Member to pages 16 to 30 of this very motion that was tabled in this House, Honorable Speaker. And these are facts. And I've also said that, Honorable Speaker, on this particular matter, the threshold is on the 2/3, and we're also working on the balance of probability. We are looking at this matter on how the facts relate or place themselves on the table from the transfer of the properties and also the registration of the companies. I mean, it is clear the facts are contemporaneous. No.
And let's listen to Osoro. So I wonder why there is something called privilege of parliament, and that whatever is said in parliament cannot be used in the court of law against you. That is what happened in the National Assembly, and they abused that privilege just to say anything and every filth, any filth against the deputy president. I probably think that there is a proposal from Mukunji the member of parliament from Manyata, member of parliament from Embu, there is a proposal that is saying that when we want to impeach the president and the deputy president, there should be a referendum about it. Listen to this. So this is very important because what's happening in parliament, in the legislature, is something that is really saddening, and in fact it's not serving the justice that is really needed. If there is something called definition of justice, then the truth of the matter here is in those two parliaments there is no trace of justice. They use the privilege of parliament just to say anything and everything they think is right. I will analyze about that in my next video and analyze more about that proposal in my next video. Now, the motion movers are desperately pulling the late Nderitu Gachagua's will into the picture. You know, I know, yes, it is very possible that kama wewe ndio umepewa keki ugawe, and also the brother, that privilege can also be abused. You know, that privilege can also be abused. I've listened to what Osoro is saying. Osoro is saying that he changed the directors of those companies to, you know, in around March 2022. March 2022, we had not even done the election. So I think even if it is power, I cannot probably see the real trace of power. So I want to explain this attempt on dragging this in table. And before I explain it, when government is very desperate in the Senate, and they're desperately pushing to impeach the deputy president in the Senate, there are some three factors that I'm seeing here. If Rigathi survives in the Senate, it will be a big backlash for the members of parliament. And in fact, one of the issues on the table, you've seen names that have been, you know, thrown left, right, and center. People have sat down. People have already inherited the deputy president office and residence before even this Senate impeachment. So they're so keen on it. And I want to tell you why they're so keen on this matter of the Senate. Now, the Senate is talking of justice. The Senate is saying, we've seen the bravado in Parliament, in the National Assembly. We want to see the facts. And this is already sending some signal to these powers that if they're not careful, then they might actually they will not be able to get away with it. Not very able to get away with it. So they're so keen on this move in Senate. And in fact, the National Assembly was, you know, it was a smooth ride because of there are claims of bribery and President Ruto making personal calls. But in the Senate is a trial chamber, and looking at how it is done, it might head to the courts. Even though Nelson Havi has said that the framers of 2010 Constitution did not envision that after impeachment, they capped the impeachment of the deputy president and the president to end at the Senate. That court should not have an intervention of the impeachment of the president and the deputy president. Now, what will they achieve by dragging Nderitu Gachagua's will in the picture? Number one, I think the movers of the motion, as had been their plan, they want to portray Rigathi Gachagua as a man who used his position as a deputy president to abuse power and snatch properties that belonged to his brother. And the double card in that is that there is, remember an MP spoke in National Assembly about kama a widow ananyang'anywa Nyeri, then there is an assault against the widow. Remember in the National Assembly, there was a very fake charge on the deputy president that he disrespects women. I remember that discussion, that he disrespects women. Now, that charge of he disrespects women is why this affidavit is being sworn. And they want that the family of Nderitu Gachagua, the inner family of Nderitu Gachagua, to disown Rigathi Gachagua, so that from there, the Senate will poke holes on that will. The more they poke holes on that will, then they will be able to portray the country. And in fact, now emotionally, they will use they will use that story to run the smear campaign that the deputy president anadharau wamama. Now let me tell you, today I'm currently in Nakuru. So when I was traveling to Nakuru this day, I was coming this end. So around Kinembe, is it Kinembe? Yeah, where there was some traffic. There was some protest hapo. I think Bele Lari kidogo. On your around Lari, if I'm not wrong. So I carried two women, tuliwabeba kwa gari. They were from Mount Kenya. And then the discussion about the impeachment of the deputy president propped up. And then we were like, I asked them a very straight question that kuna hii charge kwamba naibu wa rais anadharau wa mama. You were and I was asking them, you are the people that were dancing and singing the praises for the president and his deputy on his campaigns. Do you take up that issue of anadharau wa mama? And let me surprise you that those women were actually saying that MPs are saying that properties of the brother, that he took over the properties of the brother. Then we asked them, do you believe those stories? Then they were like, oh, kama lichukua, basi wacha tuone kama lichukua. Tunataka tujue huyo mama aongee kwamba kama lichukua. And they really took issue with that. But then I asked, then do you trust what the MPs are saying? Then they were no. On utterances of the MP and even that discussion of that shareholding, they are not in it. But they were so keen on, wanasema kwamba Gachagua alinyang'anya bibi ya Nderitu vitu zake. Look at that. So you can see how sometimes a propaganda is peddled and it targets a gullible members of the population who cannot have an objective judgment of what actually is being said. The second reason why this will is being dragged is the Mwingi Mutuse and the team have failed terribly to establish the nexus between the office of the deputy president and this company, the nexus of the criminal charge between his position as a deputy president and those companies. Because let me tell you, before it went to Senate, one of the charges in Yezoa complained kwamba official residence of the deputy president Arambeo's office was used as in the website of those companies, or rather as physical location for those companies. So if you cannot establish, what will be so important? In fact, some of those companies are managing the brothers' properties. To my end, Rigathi is managing those properties. So they're trying to establish a nexus. And because that is not there, they have to go for the will. Alter, and now they're claiming that together is altered that will. So that is what the family of Nderitu Gachagua is being called to come and swear affidavit about such factor of alteration. Number 3, they want to run an emotional onslaught on the deputy president because I think the DP silenced the critics and the movers of the motion when he explained his true position about that witness. And lastly, lock out Rigathi out of the brothers' property. And in fact, one of the things that they would want is that for the family to maybe petition a case. When a case is launched in the court on the will of Nderitu Gachagua, then probably some strange orders might be given for those properties to be fizzled. And that is part of the longer scheme to make sure that even if the DP did not survives or fails to is impeached, he might not have finances to run politics. Because remember, that is the game. That is the factor on it. And I think looking at the level of desperation that the state is, the level of the extent, the limit that the state is stretching to nail the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, the burden is Rigathi Gachagua must have his best foot forward in the Senate. And I wish he can fail to answer other queries on, he might fail on the other charges. But this criminal charge is what the Senate want to see. Actually, the Senate want to see billions lost, you know, and even the country. Show us billions of taxpayers' money lost in this company that belongs to the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. And this doesn't mean that there is no corruption. And the government should own up. If the system, if themselves they design the system, that it cannot be able to test and pinpoint a specific corruption charge, even on this matter of these companies, then they should not really whip the emotions of the country by this impeachment. Because we believe there are cases that, just yesterday, Waluku had been jailed for 67 years. That jail or fine of 2 billion, it was overturned by the Court of Appeal. Yesterday it was overturned by the Court of Appeal and Waluku was, being received. So what we are saying here is, I think the country and the Deputy President might really have to prove beyond any reasonable doubt criminal culpability or any fraud attached to those companies, because Ruto and his team are stretching their limits and they will stop at nothing to ensure that Rigathi goes home. Thank you.